Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I'm your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger, and I'm super excited, stoked, thrilled, whatever you want to call it, to have Marvin Pierre on the line here. Marvin works with the project 8 Million Stories. That's 8millionstories.org. But I'm going to finish yapping my jaw and talk to Marvin about what's going on at 8millionstories.org and what's it all about. So Marvin, welcome to Geek Therapy Radio.
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate having me.
Cool. So, yeah, tell me what 8 Million Stories is all about. Bring listeners up to speed.
So the 8 Million Stories program was created by our original founder, Vanessa Ramirez, who created this idea of creating a nurturing and supportive environment for young people who have been involved in the juvenile system. So on an average, every year, our juvenile or our schools essentially refer almost 12,000 young people to the juvenile system in the city of Houston.
Yeah.
And what's concerning is that for most of those kids who are between the ages of 10 to 18, most of them don't have an opportunity to go back into their traditional school settings for various reasons. They've been labeled as troublemakers, or their past behaviors have prevented them from having a second chance at going back into their community schools. And so we decided to create the program as an alternative way to give young people who are, a product of our juvenile system an opportunity to get a second chance at life. So they get educational programming support. They also get vocational training. So we put all of our kids through a training certification program where they get job readiness training, and they also walk away with 6 nationally recognized vocational trades. And then we focus on the most important piece, which is the social-emotional learning component. So addressing life skill needs and just addressing some of the early trauma that many of them have experienced at a very young age.
Right. So, I mean, just for... I'll give a generic example just top of my head, but I want to hear if you have any specific example of something like this. But let's say a kid, I mean, really, when you're 14, 15 years old, you're a child. And for whatever reason, you get pulled out of school, you get in trouble for something. It's incredibly unfortunate. But you're right. When you're taken out of the school system, you lose a lot of opportunity. So if you get taken out at 15 years old and you're out for 2 years or so, it can seem like there's no hope towards finishing school, maybe getting a GED. Is our GED something that you help out with?
Yeah, that's what our kids get through the program at the current time. We're working on actually helping our kids get high school diplomas. Yeah.
And is there one specific story of somebody, even like recently, fresh on your mind, who has gone through the program and done something great with their life? Do you have any sort of inspirational story?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I definitely think about one of my kids, Donovan. Donovan was before he was in 8 Million Stories, was heavily in the streets, selling drugs and stealing cars, and now he's a freshman at a college in Tyler, Texas.
Wow.
And is doing amazingly well. I mean, we are a true example of what happens when we put the resources and the right people in the lives of young people. This is what is possible. And so Donovan is doing amazingly well. He's transitioning into the college experience, and he's loving it. He's learning a lot about himself. He's learning about some of the things that he needs to continue to develop. But I'm really proud of him. For taking this risk, because he was really apprehensive about going to college after he completed 8 Million Stories. And he was one of the things he was saying to us as the staff who collectively supported him. He was like, well, how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to get there? Like, he was really worried about the financial commitment that he had to make to go to college and how he was going to be able to overcome that. And when he found out that we were taking on most of that burden for him, it was just a sigh of relief for him, because his whole mindset has shifted, because he said, wow, now you guys are removing all the barriers that could prevent me from taking advantage of this situation, and now you're putting me in a position to be successful. And so that's one of the things we work to do in the program, is creating as many support systems for our kids so that they don't have an excuse or a reason to go back into past behavior.
Yeah, what you gave him and what you helped him realize, it gave me goosebumps to hear his story, that you gave him a future. Like, you opened that door. It was like a foggy window you cleaned for him to see, I am not stuck in this situation. And you, over at 8 Million Stories, helped him realize that he does have a future, that he does have a mind that's capable of creating greatness in this world, that you don't have to be a product of your past, that you can rise above that. And you know, I tell a lot of, drug addiction is you know, it's no stretch to say that it's a plague in our country, but there's a lot of drug addicts who go to rehab and they work down the road of addiction, and they're so ashamed of the addiction of their past, or whatever the past story was. And I try to tell those people, because I know them very closely, that that story doesn't have to be a negative part of your life anymore. You can use that to help others. You can say, and to relate to others, hey man, I've been where you've been. Hey girl, I've been where you've been. And here's the path out of it, and I'm willing to help you out of it. That your past does not define your future. So I think what you're doing at 8 Million Stories is, you guys are angels over there, like real live angels from heaven, helping this youth to realize that they don't have to waste their minds, that they can, the world is their oyster, and they can do anything. That's wonderful. Yeah,
he was one of the highlights of the trip. When we drove him to school, he was like, wow, Mr. Pierre, the last time I was driving towards Dallas, I was in a stolen car. I was stealing cars in different cities and driving them back to Houston. He's like, now I'm going back as a college student.
Yeah.
And it was mind-boggling.
Yeah. And so how far along in the college is he? They're in Tyler, you said, right?
Yeah, he's in Tyler. He's a freshman this year. He's just finished his second month.
And does he keep as part of the program, they keep in touch with you, like week to week or month to month, kind of check in on the progress?
I speak to him every week, and I have access to all of his grades, his online. We're like we're registered as his parents and guardians. So anything that happens to him, we learn about relatively quickly. So
off the air, is it even possible that I could get his email or something? I'd like to talk to him about his story. That'd be amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that off the air. Marvin, thank you so much for coming on Geek Therapy Radio this week. That was amazing. I have a feeling that I'm going to be checking in with you a lot in the future. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. A fast 30 seconds for Audi Central Houston before we start this segment of Geek Therapy Radio. Audi Central Houston and AudiCentralHouston.com, where you can get an Audi in every budget, from the A3 to the R8. They all have the fuel efficiency, the safety, and of course the technology. Oh, we can geek out about the technology all day long here on Geek Therapy Radio. So make sure you check out AudiCentralHouston.com and cruise on over to Audi Central Houston. When you go to Audi Central Houston, tell them that Geek Therapy Radio sent you. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. I am your mental curator, Johnny Hemberger, and I am joined by the, I guess you'd say the garden curator, Randy Lemmon.
Garden Weasel.
The Garden Weasel, is that what you are?
That's the nickname I have in the hallways at work.
Okay. Well, I'm going to call you Weasel next time you're up here. And
you can say DeWeeze.
The Wheeze. Did you ever see Encino Man?
Yes.
That's one of my favorite movies.
It's a fun movie.
It is a funny movie. So he's, Pauly Shore. That's back in the 5 minutes that Pauly Shore was famous.
He was actually perfect for that role.
Yeah. And it's probably a good thing that he didn't have a long, lustrous Hollywood career. But he used to do that little weaselly sound. Whatever. Randy, a lot of listeners, they obviously know who you are. More people know who you are than they know who I am. But what they may not realize about you is that you are They may know that you have a passing interest in music, but they may not know that you are hot to trot for 70s rock and roll bands. Is that too much of a stretch to say?
Late 70s rock and roll bands.
Late 70s.
Well, first of all, for those of you that don't know, I do the GardenLine radio show for KTRH and have for now 2 decades. And I've always been a radio and television producer at heart. And so music's important. Bump music.
Yeah.
Bumping in and out of breaks is important. And I'm a product of the 80s. That's no doubt about it. But I was a teenager back in the late 70s. So 1978, it just seems to be, you and I were talking about this kind of off the air. I think 1978 just is the tightest year for rock and roll bands, that all those songs, and you can name a litany of bands, they're still relevant today. That was the key phrase. They're still relevant today.
Yeah, so that's what we were talking about. We were having a discussion. I kept telling Randy to hold it. His loudmouth soup may have prevented that a little bit. Yeah, here's what listeners don't know who listen to GardenLine. Most of the time, if you're listening to GardenLine, Randy is in his bathtub in a bubble bath with a glass of Chardonnay.
Wouldn't I get electrocuted?
Well, you put a Ziploc bag around the microphone. That'll do it.
Okay, let me correct you on 2 things.
Okay.
Right? I can be in my bathrobe, but not in a bathtub. I can do the show from my house more times than not. So I'm basically in my jammies, and I love big red cabs. I don't like Chardonnays. I'm a big red cab person, but I'm not drinking at 7:45 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday morning. So that's a different story.
Well, I was going to say, you can be in your bathtub drinking your cabs. There doesn't have to be any water in it. You could just be sitting in the bathtub in your jammies, and that's how you can do your show.
You were raised in electronic media.
Yeah.
You know that doesn't sound good.
Yeah. You know what, Randy? Why we have to? You don't have to be so. You're taking all the air out of my sails here by being so literal with it. That being in a bathtub, that's going to sound horrible for radio, and I agree. You shot down my dreams. Maybe you should do tomorrow's show. Well, tomorrow, as of time.
Because I'm visualizing that, and you're making me laugh because all of a sudden I visualize that, and I'm thinking, what was the lifestyles of the rich and famous who just recently passed?
Yeah. Yeah. What is his name?
You can think of him in a bathtub with champagne, and that's got me thinking: am I answering GardenLine questions from a bathtub, drinking an alcoholic beverage?
I see. You don't have to be drinking. You can be. I'm just pleasantly writing out this vision of GardenLine being conducted by Randy Lemmon sitting in a bathtub in his jammies, water or no water, but he's doing a show. That is my dream, and I have done. Hold on a second. I have done some shows. I've done a lot of shows actually, just in boxers. Because people can't.
Okay, I can get down with that, but I don't wear boxers. I wear long-legged jammies all the time.
You keep. I feel like you're very passionate about jammies because you're not saying pajamas or anything. It's jammies. They've got to be.
Think about that for a second. Anybody that does their radio show from their house, especially early in the mornings.
Yeah.
6 a.m. to 10 a.m. on weekends.
Yeah.
What do you think I'm going to be dressed like?
With suit and tie, tuxedo.
I don't even do that when I come to the radio stations.
When you come to the radio stations, I've seen you wear a bow tie, and they look like daisies.
I wear boots.
Okay.
And jeans a lot. And jacket. I do wear jackets to the radio station a lot. You can confirm that.
Okay.
But I don't wear ties anymore.
Okay. Well, let's get back to the meat.
What were we talking about?
The meat and potatoes of this segment was supposed to be the staying power, why bands from 40 years ago have the staying power that they do versus modern music today, which most top 40 musicians today, you won't know anything about them in 10 years. They'll be dead and gone, and you'll say, Drake, who was that, for instance?
Justin Bieber, who was that?
Justin Bieber, who was that? But you know who Journey is. Everyone knows who Journey is. Journey is here to stay. They've been here, and they're not going anywhere. The Rolling Stones. So do you think there's anyone today who has even remotely the staying power of a band like the Rolling Stones.
Okay, band? No.
Yeah.
Certain artists, yeah. I mean, I had to be corrected on that by a friend of mine. And by the way, this all started because my 17-year-old got mesmerized by Wheel in the Sky by Journey. He knows the standards, Don't Stop Believing. He knows those. He hears them all the time. But he stopped in his tracks, dead in his tracks, did a pivot, and I was watching a documentary on Journey, and that's what caught his attention. And he goes, I didn't know they did that song, or that song's great, you know. And it's like, dude, every song from rock and roll bands in 1978 were that tight.
Yeah.
And that's what started the whole discussion. But my correction was, someone mentioned Beyonce, and I say, okay, I can see her still being relevant and making hits 30 years from now.
Yeah.
But she's not a band. She's not a rock and roll band. She's technically made.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see. And something else we were talking about off the air, I brought up the point that I think a lot of what led to the staying power of bands, rock and roll bands from 40 years ago, is that most of the music was riff-driven. So it was catchy, just like a jingle. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. You know, you have a rock and roll band by Boston. It has a riff that sticks out in your head, and I don't think that a lot of rock bands today, like if you turn on the Buzz right now, anybody you're hearing on there right now for sure does not have the staying power that, let's say, Journey does.
Yeah, another thing that started this whole discussion was Kansas, that they're still playing to this day. You know, they still have the core of their band together, what they started in the early 1970s, and 1978 was their big breakout year. And everybody that heard that is like going, I've never heard anything like that before. And you heard that on stage, exactly what you heard on their records. And that's what was so neat about all those bands that are still relevant today. Now, granted, bands like the Cars aren't together as a group anymore, but their songs are still relevant. Mm-hmm. And the Police, same thing. But you still see Styx and Foreigner and Journey, Cheap Trick, Kansas. They're still out there playing.
And they still kick
their
ass.
Concerts are awesome.
And exactly, they still kick ass. Randy, where can people find out more about the GardenLine?
Well, the GardenLine is within our little cluster of radio stations. I don't know I know you're all over the United States, not as much. I'm not as much, but because we're so local. But KTRH is the local Houston station. You can also find us on Facebook, GardenLine with Randy Lemmon, randylemmon.com. You can email me either way. You can message me any way like that. If you're hearing this and you want to throw out a song or a band that, you know, just resonates, 1978 tight rock and roll band, I mean, let me know, because I'll use it for bump music.
Yeah. Randy, thank you so much for being on Geek Therapy Radio this week.
You know, I'm proud of you, my friend, and even though I'm old enough to be your dad, I still love what you're doing out there, and thanks for everything you do for us.
Thanks, Randy. A quick 30 seconds up front here for Audi Central Houston. Guys and gals, when I tell you to go to Audi Central Houston, it's not just because they are partners with Geek Therapy Radio. It's because I have been a customer myself, and even my father before me, a customer of Audi Central Houston. So I know that they will take great care of you, and I know you're going to get the highest quality automobile you can possibly buy and drive around these Texas roads over at Audi Central Houston. Start your perusing at AudiCentralHouston.com. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio, and this is the week of guests. This is going to be the third guest in a row. I might have to do the last segment all by my lonesome.
Well, you pay the best.
I pay the best?
Mm-hmm, for guests to come on your show.
That's true. I'm trying to think of what I gave you, but I forget. Maybe I can't mention it on the air.
Yeah, that was a non-disclosure thing.
Completely off. Although I have heard that you have. This is Ramon Robles, King of Ding. Well, from the Michael Berry Show.
Honorary title. I hold no titles or lands or any authority. Whatever. Just honorary.
I might put can I put one of your dings in here?
Yeah, I can sanction that. Sure.
I'll put it right here. There we go. Raro, you are a bit of a geek. I keep calling you Raro because I don't know, where does that come from?
Calling me that. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know. Ramon Robles, the two letters in the first and last name. It's all right.
Ramon,
I like it.
He used to be my boss, I don't know if you technically are in any regard other than the Michael Berry show.
Oh, I'm not anybody's boss anymore. I gave that up at the beginning of the year. That, oof.
You gave a lot of stuff up. You gave up the beard.
Yeah.
And you gave up, what is it, like 200 pounds or something right now?
No. It's officially it's 85. Michael likes to say 100 just because it's a round number.
Yeah.
But no, it's like 80. It fluctuates. So you shouldn't step on the scale every day like I do, because it's 85 in the morning, then 83 at night, and
Yeah.
It's.
I get you, but I have to make sure that you're facing me right now, because if you were off to this profile, I would be able to see that.
Yes.
That's amazing. That's what were you doing to achieve that?
First of all, I appreciate you saying that, but here's my motivation.
Ketos or
no, I'm currently doing intermittent fasting where I eat once a day, and for a couple of weeks there, I'd sprinkle in juice cleansing for a week where you do nothing but drink juice,
right?
And that was good. I did well with that. And yeah, so it's really just intermittent fasting. You eat one time a day, and for me, it's pretty easy given my schedule. In the mornings, I'm usually not hungry. I got to power through lunch a little bit, and then by the time 4, 5, 6 o'clock rolls around, I'll eat. And really, the cool thing is I eat whatever I want. If I want to stop at Mickey D's and get something, I'll stop. The thing, yeah. Well, the thing is, when you're big and fat like I was, and look, I'm still large. Nobody's going to see me and go, look at that skinny guy.
That's not all right.
But it's okay. I'm all right.
Yeah.
But the point is, when you're eating like 4,000 calories a day or whatever it was I was eating, and then all of a sudden you just stop eating 4,000 and instead eat 3,000 or 2,500, that's a calorie deficit all of a sudden. So, you don't have to cut back a lot when you're already eating so much. Right. I just happen to cut back a lot as well.
I think I was thinking about this today on my way to work, because I stopped at McDonald's. I was like, well, if there's not, it was 11:30 or something like that. Sometime, and about that time, it's either going to be starting to get busy or not busy yet. So I stopped by just to see if I have time, I'll get at McDonald's. But it was a little bit too busy, so I just came to work.
Yep.
And I was thinking, I think my problem, because I think I'm skinny fat.
Yeah.
You can't see this on the radio, but I got a little gut. Sarah, my fiance now, says that I've got a body like the Grinch.
Okay.
So it's like, well, that's kind of extreme, but I was thinking, I was like, where did I get the gut other than just getting old and where my hair went also? I was like, I don't eat that much a day. I probably on average eat, honestly, less than 2,000 calories a day.
Okay.
But what I eat is mostly garbage.
Yeah.
Like it's mostly trash. And Sarah was explaining to me, because she does all the CrossFit and all that kind of stuff. She's like, what can happen is if you're not eating a ton, but it is all trash, your body is like constantly, when it's in starvation mode, it wants to hold on to the fat.
Okay.
So if you eat fatty stuff and you don't eat a lot of food, period, it's going to try to hold on to it, because when your body is in starvation mode, it wants to retain all the fat. So that's probably what's going on with me. Also, we all go through these, I go through these kind of phases where it's like, I want to exercise. Like we have a gym downstairs. It's like $50 a year. It's really an awesome rate. But I'll go through these phases where like for several weeks, I'll go down there and run. And every time I do that, when I get back on the wagon, so to speak, it's like I have to, like my stamina. Like when we were younger, we could run around all day or then go through periods of not running and then just like a couple months later run around again. Our body didn't have that. We didn't need to retrain ourselves every time.
Right.
Like we didn't need to get our stamina back up. If that makes any sense. Now, if I haven't hit the treadmill I'd say if I let maybe a week go by, if I haven't just even jogged in the treadmill down there, like, why is 1 mile such hell?
Yeah.
Why? Back in the day, I could have run 10 miles no problem.
Yeah.
And then maybe if I didn't do it, I could get back on the treadmill. Like, oh, I'm at 8 miles now. But just that, you have to like regain the stamina, and that's tough. And I don't know what happens in our minds. It has to be some sort of endorphin.
How old are you?
I'm 35. I was about to say 23. I'm 35.
What's the matter with you? Yeah, 35. Well, now you're getting up there.
So I'm not going to say I have lost any sort of stamina. Well, it's not when I was 18, but I am not a worthless sack.
Yeah.
Yet.
No, you're not a worthless sack.
Maybe one day.
No, not yet.
And I think it kind of it's part and parcel with being in radio. We do a lot of, we sit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think like, why I'm sitting here, here's one screen on my personal laptop, 2, 3, 4, 5, like,
yeah.
When did we ever need 6 screens in radio? You wouldn't think that we need so many computers in radio. We just talk in radio, but you need a lot of screens and the sedentary lifestyle.
Yeah, that's our culture now.
Yeah,
well, even on our phones. I mean, even when we're walking, we're still looking at a screen with our phones.
Man, that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother debate. There's one thing. Let's talk about Michael a little bit. I didn't bring you in to talk about Michael.
Yeah, that's
right. Because
you would not be the first person to ask me about Michael.
Well, there's something that I think it was you telling me that he told you. Back when I was asking, when I first got my show, one of the biggest fears was, how am I going to fill, I think right now it's 39 minutes total of content. Yeah. How am I going to talk about something for 39 minutes? And it's kind of a skill that you get. I probably spent 4 minutes of this entire segment just vamping about weight loss and working out.
Yeah.
And now the problem is, how do I only talk for 39 minutes? But back when I was first starting and worrying about filling the space with content, it was either you or Michael telling me about describing a hamburger. And I've worked with Michael long enough to hear him he will describe a piece of food, not like even an entire meal.
Right.
Like he will describe a leaf of lettuce for 7 or 8 minutes at a time. And it's like, just keep talking. People will listen if you just keep talking. Now you want to keep it kind of as informative and entertaining as possible, but if you can keep listeners glued to their speakers or their earphones or their Bluetooths talking about a cheeseburger, then you really got something. Yeah,
and Michael is, I think, the best at that. He's so good, and it's so fun to watch him. You never get tired of that. And yeah, he's good. And you talk about filling 39 minutes. We look at ourselves every Monday and we think, holy crap, this is a new week. We have 100 segments every week that we have to do for a work week. And so, it doesn't get any easier. And yeah, Michael is he can take anything. The best part for me is when he talks to a caller who just wants to give an answer about their favorite cake. Yeah. And you'll find out that person, parachuted out of a plane onto a cactus one time. I mean, he just has a way of bringing things out of people that everybody has a story to tell, and Michael is the best at pulling that out of people. The last thing I'll bring up in this segment is just that, because for those of you who don't know, my 9 to 5 or my 12 to 8 p.m. actually on KTRH, from 5 to 7 p.m. I am the screener for Michael or Ramon and I kind of trade off a little bit, but it's mostly you're a producer. I'm the screener, right? Well, you're a producer. So I'll screen calls, and it's people wanting to be very topical about the president or politics or whatever's going on in the day, and then I'll take a call. I just want to tell Michael that I ate this steak the other day, and I know Michael's going to take that one. No matter what's going on in the country, I already know that Michael. I don't tell them directly, Michael's going to take you, but I just know Michael enough to know that he's gonna. This is the one he's going to take. It's going to be the one about, like you said, cake or food, or if it's something musical, like that's the one Michael's going to take. Ramon, thank you for being on. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. This was neat. Congrats. Yeah, thank you very much. Show sounding good. Yeah, sounding really good right now. Oh, man, this is the pinnacle of the show right now. Is there anything you want to plug real quick? No, I got nothing to plug. I'm just a slave for the Michael Berry Show. So listen to the Michael Berry Show on KTRH. All right, that'll do it for this segment, and we'll be right back with more after these very brief messages. Welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. A quick 60 seconds here for Audi Central Houston, because they will take such great care of you, and what you will drive away in is a rolling masterpiece. Please go to AudiCentralHouston.com and check out the new A6, the new A8, and the all-new Q8. You've also heard me talking about the Audi e-tron. The Audi e-tron is 100% electric. It is an SUV. It'll carry your entire family around in style, of course, but you won't burn a drop of
gasoline, all the technology, all of the safety. I was going to say all of the fuel efficiency, but you're not using fuel at all. So the Audi e-tron is the way to go. Make sure you're going to AudiCentralHouston.com and registering and signing up so you can be one of the first to get your new Audi e-tron. All that can be found, all the sexiness and style and safety and more at AudiCentralHouston.com. If you're just tuning into the broadcast here on KPRC 950, welcome back to Geek Therapy Radio. You can find Geek Therapy Radio all over the place on social media and podcasts. Just Google search Geek Therapy Radio and you'll see it. It'll come up, Geek Therapy Radio with Johnny Hemberger. Subscribe to the podcast, follow the Instagram and the Facebook and the YouTube and all that good stuff. There's so much content there, but really, welcome into Geek Therapy Radio. In this segment, I want to talk about two things. One more than the other. This is going to be some tech news, some geek news, of course. One, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on, but it's the MacBook Air, the new MacBook Air. And the second one is the Samsung, the new foldable display Samsung phone slated for release sometime in 2019. So first, let's talk briefly about my opinions on the MacBook Air, the new MacBook Air. And here it is. Drum roll. That was a very bad drum roll. First of all, I don't have a MacBook Air. I don't plan on buying a MacBook Air, but I don't hate the idea or innately hate the new MacBook Air just for what it is. Could your dollar go a lot further for something more powerful and, of course, bigger and heavier than the MacBook Air at $1,200? I believe that's the starting point. Yes, you could get so much more for your money if you want something heavier and running Windows, basically. The MacBook Air comes so close to the cost of a traditional 13-inch MacBook that my advice, honestly, would be to get the MacBook. It's $100 more expensive or so, more powerful, better storage. If I was going to spend around $1,200 to $1,300 on a MacBook, I personally would go with the 13-inch MacBook Pro. That's just me. But I don't inherently hate the MacBook Air. Some people have said it's only a 7-watt Y series Intel Core i5. That's not a big deal breaker to me, because you got to think, who's going to be using this? You're not going to be using the MacBook Air to do any sort of hardcore video editing or image editing, photo editing. You're not going to be doing 3D CAD designs. You're not going to be using it as a powerhouse laptop. If you're spending $1,200 on a powerhouse laptop, you are not spending that $1,200 on a MacBook Air. But what you are using it for, you're using it for typing, you're using it for social media, you're using it to watch YouTube, you're using it to do some office tasks. And in that regard, my only gripe with the MacBook Air is that I think it should be a couple $100 cheaper. If it were a couple $100 cheaper, it would be a much nicer entry point for those of us who aren't invested in the Apple ecosystem, who are looking to get an Apple product. I think $1,000 would be much nicer for an entry point, but it's just the Apple tax. It being expensive, that's just the Apple tax. Let's move on to the Samsung foldable phone slated for release. There's no name for it yet, really. And right now, it's just a prototype that they showed off recently, that Samsung showed off. That's hard to say. But this is more of an opinion, and I want your opinion. If you are watching this on YouTube, if you're listening on KPRC 950 or listening to the podcast, go subscribe, please, to the Geek Therapy Radio YouTube channel. Just type in YouTube Geek Therapy Radio and it'll come up. I want your opinions on there. That's a very convenient way to give me your opinion on the new Samsung foldable phone slated for release in 2019. Are we ready for foldable phones? Here's some pros and cons, just off the top of my head. Pro is, yes, it's the form factor of a phone as far as screen size when it's in phone mode, but you unfold it and you've got a tablet, a lot of screen real estate. I think that's amazing. I think that's awesome. The cons are to be seen, I think. Actually, go back to the Pros. You could fit a much bigger battery. You could fit 2 batteries in there. You can't fold a battery. That's bad news, bears. But if you could put 2, 3,300 milliamp hour batteries in that thing, man, that thing would crush at battery life. Cons. And again, cons are to be seen because this is just a prototype. And that's something I think a lot of us need to remember here, is that it's just a prototype. When Samsung showed it off recently, a couple days ago, when it was folded, it was a brick. When it was open, it was a thick tablet. This is just a prototype. This is just a proof of concept. I think with some refinement, honestly, quite a bit of refinement, this could be an amazing piece of technology. Get us one step farther towards a unified device that we can do all of our computing on, or 90% of our computing on. Basically, keep your beefy desktop computer at home and then carry around with you a foldable smartphone that you can do more work on. It's great that it's going to be Android, and it's great that Google has officially announced software support for native Android foldable support from Google. Google is working on making an ecosystem work for foldable Android devices. That's amazing. Here's my speculation of where it could be even more awesomer. What if Windows makes a phone that doesn't suck? And as I say that, oh, Windows phones, my goodness. But if you actually, bear with me here, if you made a phone, a Windows phone that had an actual, i3 of whatever variant, Y series i3, a low power, even 5-watt chip in there, 2 watts even, where you can do the bulk of your PC work and have a phone with you at all times, that would be amazing. So I think the future for foldable phone technology is bright and amazing. Do not let the first prototypes get you down. For now, that's it for Geek Therapy Radio. Let's pay some bills on the way out. Audi Central Houston and AudiCentralHouston.com. I know you've heard me talk a lot about Audi Central Houston on Geek Therapy Radio, but it's easy. Even if they weren't partners of the show, I would still send friends and family to Audi Central Houston. I have been a customer of Audi Central Houston since even before Geek Therapy Radio was ever on the air. My dad was a customer of Audi Central Houston, so I know how they treat customers at Audi Central Houston. They treat you like family. And what are you getting when you go to Audi Central Houston? And remember, there's an Audi for every budget. From the A3 to the R8, there's an Audi in every budget at Audi Central Houston. What you're getting is all the safety. What you're getting is all the sophistication. It really is a rolling piece of art. You're getting all the fuel efficiency, and you're getting all the technology that us geeks and everybody can geek out over. They are absolutely amazing. The new A6, the new A8, the new Q8, all can be found at Audi Central Houston and AudiCentralHouston.com. Tell them Geek Therapy Radio sent you. Awesome drinks, amazing food, arcade games, and karaoke. Where else does a geek need to go to have some fun? They go to Kung Fu Saloon at 5317 Washington Avenue. The best drinks, the most mind-boggling food, and a great selection of arcade games, and you can even get your tay-tay on with some karaoke. That's Kung Fu Saloon, 5317 Washington Avenue, kungfusaloon.com, and tell them Geek Therapy Radio sent you. Sarah says I have a body like the Grinch. Geeks, you can work out all you want, but if your nutrition is off track, you're treading water. Talk to my friends at worththeweight.co. That's WEIGHT, worththeweight.co. 8millionstories.org. That's 8EIGHT. 8millionstories.org gives troubled youth a second chance at a real future. For more information or to get involved, 8millionstories.org.